Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a shift so profound, it's rewriting the very rules of our economic relevance. Not just for jobs, but for us as human beings. We're really talking about a unique historical moment, maybe a narrow window, where the fabric of civilization itself is being rewoven.
Right. And the sources we looked at for this, they're fascinating. They frame it less like a warning, maybe, and more like, well, almost an engineering manual.
An engineering manual for what?
For building a radically different future. It's quite a perspective, isn't it? I mean, lots of people sense this deep systemic wrongness out there.
Yeah, you feel it,
Yeah,
even if you can't quite put your finger on it.
exactly. And our analysis of these sources, it suggests this isn't just, vague anxiety. It's fundamental pattern recognition. It's seeing a civilization facing this really unique paradox. They call it the abundance trap.
The abundance trap, okay, that sounds intriguing, almost sci-fi, but you're saying it's real.
Alarmingly real, yeah. Here's the core paradox, basically. We are right on the cusp of achieving, or maybe you could argue we've already arrived at post-scarcity, but not in stuff, in intelligence itself.
Whoa, hang on. Post-scarcity and intelligence.
Yeah.
That fundamental human thing?
Becoming infinitely available, yeah, think about that. Yet, our entire economic system, which is fundamentally hardwired to manage scarcity,
Wow.
it processes this massive new abundance as a catastrophe. It's like our whole economic operating system just breaks. It can't handle it.
It sees abundance as poverty. That's backwards.
Precisely. And the material we've examined, it really highlights this disconnect. It points to two very different dashboards we use to measure our world.
Okay, two dashboards.
On one hand, you've got the official dashboard, record high stock markets, steady GDP growth, historically low unemployment figures.
Right, the stuff you see on the news. By those metrics, things look, well, pretty good.
Yeah.
Robust, even.
Yeah, prosperous on paper. But then there's the other dashboard, the dashboard of human reality.
Uh-huh. And that's where the flashing red lights are, I take it.
That's where the alarms start blaring, absolutely. Life satisfaction. Lowest point ever recorded in many places. Deaths of despair, suicide, overdose, alcoholism, they're at epidemic levels.
And you see it everywhere. A whole generation drowning in debt, can't afford a home, putting off starting families.
Richer on paper, yes, but poorer in spirit, maybe. It's almost like the entire civilization has been built perfectly backwards, as one source puts it.
Perfectly backwards. That raises a huge question, doesn't it? If our systems are producing these outcomes, what are we actually optimizing for?
Which brings us right to the mission for this deep dive. We're not just here to, sound the alarm.
Right.
The goal is to provide a guide. As you said, the sources present this as an engineering manual for building something different, a concept they call human symbiosis.
Human symbiosis, okay.
So we're going to unpack why our current economic system is failing us so badly. We need to understand the new physics of value that's emerging, and then really crucially, explore a concrete blueprint for building a healthier, more meaningful world. It's a journey from, say, demolition to construction.
Okay, let's get into that demolition phase then. Let's unpack this accelerating transformation. Because like you said, this isn't just another tech wave, is it? It feels different, deeper.
It's a profound historical echo, yeah, but with a terrifying twist. The research kicks off with this really fascinating story from 1508. There was this German abbot, Johannes Trithemius.
Trithemius.
He wrote this passionate treatise in praise of scribes, basically arguing that the newly invented printing press was just a fad.
A fad. Seriously, the printing press.
Yeah. He insisted hand-copied manuscripts were morally superior for all sorts of theological, philosophical, aesthetic reasons. Very eloquent. But what he didn't mention...
There's always a but, isn't there?
His monastery's entire income depended on hand-copying books.
Of course it did. Follow the money. So what happened?
Well, you know what happened. Within 50 years, those scriptoriums, these bustling centers of knowledge production, they were basically museums, historical curiosities.
And Trithemius is remembered as well as the guy shouting stop at the future.
Exactly. Standing athwart history, yelling at a printing press. And the parallel the authors draw is pretty stark. They say, you are Trithemius. Your job is hand-copying manuscripts. The AI is the printing press.
Okay, that's a powerful image. But here's where it gets really interesting. You said there's a twist.
There's a critical difference. The material really emphasizes this. Gutenberg's machine, it only replaced the physical act of copying. Tedious, yes, but physical.
Right. Hands, not heads.
But AI, they argue, replaces the mind itself, the cognitive function. And here's the acceleration part.
Yeah.
Unlike Trithemius, we don't have 50 years to adapt.
50 years sounds like a luxury right now.
Doesn't it? The window for meaningful choice, for making fundamentally different decisions about our economic future, it's dramatically shorter than anything humanity has ever faced before. It's acceleration beyond historical comparison.
So this acceleration, this replacement of the mind, this is the core shift.
This brings us right to the heart of it, what the sources term the intelligence inversion. This isn't just a tech upgrade, it's a foundational economic shift, the kind that completely breaks and reforms the world.
And you said there have been others, like this isn't the first time.
Over the last 10,000 years, they identify 4 such inversions, each one faster, more disruptive than the last.
4 inversions in 10,000 years. Okay, let's trace them. What was the first?
The first, lasting for basically 10 millennia, was land dominance. Simple enough, value came from controlling territory. Think pharaohs, Sumer, Rome, power measured in acres.
Makes sense. Land was everything.
Until a crack appeared. Venice, a city with basically no land but incredible wealth. How? They figured out that controlling the flow of goods, the dynamic movement of commerce, mattered more.
The flow. Not just the static asset.
Exactly. And then around 1760, James Watt's steam engine really solidified this. Value definitively shifted from static assets like land to the dynamic flow of production. From owning acres to organizing factories, that's land to flow.
Okay, inversion 1. What came next?
The second inversion followed pretty quickly, lasting maybe 2 centuries. Labor dominance. This was the era of unions, the fight for the 8-hour day. Human hands, human effort. That was the primary source of value.
The Industrial Revolution, the rise of the worker.
Right. But even as labor movements were winning battles, the ground was shifting again. The transistor in 1947 at Bell Labs, computers really taking off in the 70s.
Seeds of the next shift.
Look at Ford's River Rouge plant in 1920, 100,000 workers. By 1930, with automation, just 2,000 workers producing more cars. Machines weren't just helping, they were replacing. Value flowed away from labor towards capital owners, hands to capital.
That's inversion 2. And the third. This must be getting faster.
Much faster. Third inversion, capital to network. Around the year 2000, maybe a bit earlier, this is where it gets really weird, almost abstract, because capital itself started to dematerialize.
Dematerialize, what does that mean?
Okay, think about Kodak. In 1998, a giant, 170,000 employees, $31 billion market value, huge physical presence.
I remember Kodak, film, cameras.
Now, fast forward to Instagram in 2012, bought by Facebook for $1 billion. How many employees? 13.
13.
Or WhatsApp in 2014. 55 employees, bought for $19 billion. These tiny companies completely obliterated huge parts of established industries like telecommunications.
So the value wasn't in factories or even traditional capital anymore.
No, it transformed. It flowed to the invisible structure of the network itself, the ability to organize human attention, human connection at massive scale. That became the scarce, valuable asset.
Okay, land to flow, hands to capital, capital to network, which brings us to now. The fourth inversion.
Right now, the fourth inversion, the intelligence event. Pinpoint it to maybe November 2022. OpenAI releases ChatGPT.
Which everyone remembers. It felt like an explosion.
1 million users in 5 days. 100 million in 2 months. Fastest adoption of any technology in human history. And the fundamental shift here.
Go on.
For all of history, intelligence was a form of labor, inherently scarce, locked inside individual human skulls. You had to pay for someone's time, their expertise.
Right, you hire a lawyer, an accountant, a writer.
Now with AI, intelligence has become a form of capital. It can be copied infinitely, shared instantly across the globe, and crucially, it improves recursively. It learns from its usage.
Intelligence is capital, not labor. That changes, well, everything.
It completely rewrites the economics. The material gives this chilling example. Early 2022, maybe a decent freelance writer gets $20 an hour.
Sounds about right.
By March 2023, with API access to large AI models, you could generate a pretty good 750-word draft for about 6 cents.
6 cents from $20 an hour.
And then GPT 3.5 Turbo comes along, and it drops to fractions of a cent per 1,000 tokens.
Right.
This isn't just, a productivity boost. It's a new price regime for cognition.
A whole new cost structure for thinking.
And when the marginal cost of high-quality cognitive output dives towards zero, our whole scarcity-based economic system just starts to buckle. Then, potentially, collapse under the weight of abundance.
Wow. But you mentioned something even deeper, the metabolic thing.
Yes. This might be the deepest change of all. What the sources call the metabolic rift. Think about it. For 10,000 years, all labor digging ditches or writing code was done by metabolic human beings.
Meaning we need food, water, sleep, shelter.
Exactly. Sustenance, rest, a whole complex biological and social support system. Our economic value is fundamentally tied to our biology.
Okay.
AI and robotics, however, they are non-metabolic labor. They need electricity. That's it. No biology to support, no families, no communities, no sleep.
Just plug them in.
This is why this fourth inversion feels final. When our hands, our muscles were outcompeted by machines, we pivoted to our minds. Cognitive work became the refuge.
Right, the knowledge economy.
But when our minds themselves are outcompeted by a form of labor that doesn't need to eat, sleep, or live, the sources are blunt. There is nowhere left to pivot. We're facing a fundamentally different category of economic life.
Nowhere left to pivot. That's stark. So what does this actually mean for, the average person, for their sense of purpose, their economic future?
Well, the sources don't pull any punches here. They get into what they call the mathematics of obsolescence, and they lay out this brutal truth, the kind no politician really wants to say out loud.
Which is?
For a growing majority of cognitive tasks, a human's economic value is not just lower than an AI, it is negative.
Negative? How can value be negative?
Think about the total cost. A knowledge worker. You've got salary, sure, but also benefits, healthcare, office space, HR overhead, training time, sick days, vacation, turnover risk, management cost.
The list goes on.
Now compare that to an AI. What's the cost? API fees and electricity. That's basically it.
And the AI works 24/7.
Never gets tired, maintains consistent quality, doesn't need motivation, doesn't have emotional baggage, doesn't unionize, doesn't quit for a better offer. From a purely cold economic calculation perspective, which markets make millions of times a second,
The choice becomes pretty clear, doesn't it? If efficiency is the only goal.
it becomes overwhelmingly obvious. The human starts to look like a liability, not an asset, for many tasks.
We give an example, right? The radiology.
Yeah, it's a powerful one. A radiologist trains for, 13 years? Earns maybe $400,000 a year. Huge investment, highly skilled.
Top of the cognitive food chain, you'd think.
Yet AI systems are already diagnosing many types of cancers better than human radiologists, with higher accuracy, fewer false positives. And the cost? Pennies per scan.
Pennies.
And here's the kicker. The AI improves with every single diagnosis it makes. Every new data point makes it better, potentially cheaper. The human costs the same, whether it's their first scan of the day or their 1,000th. They just get tired, maybe make more mistakes.
The learning curves are just fundamentally different.
Yeah.
One accelerates, the other plateaus or declines.
Precisely. And if you look behind the curtain at the big companies, the S&P 500, they've already figured this out.
How so?
Their revenues keep going up, often significantly. But their employee counts, they're flat or even falling steadily in many sectors.
Right.
They're not waiting for some future breakthrough. They're quietly implementing this now. They're just waiting for the AI to get incrementally better before they can shed even more human cognitive labor.
But what about the standard answers? People say, oh, humans will pivot to creative jobs or care work.
The material addresses that directly. AI-generated songs are topping charts. AI art is winning competitions, and studies, even blind studies, show AI therapists sometimes achieve higher patient satisfaction rates. People feel less judged, perhaps.
Wow. Even therapy.
Even the idea of humans being needed as AI trainers or supervisors, that looks increasingly transitional. AIs are already getting incredibly good at training other AIs.
So the honest answer, there's no easy out this time.
The honest answer, as the research concludes, is that for the first time in economic history, we face an inversion with no obvious next pivot point for mass human labor. We are the generation living through this discontinuity.
The last humans to remember when human thought had economic value. The first to discover what comes after. That quote from the material really sticks with you.
It's both terrifying and, well, maybe liberating in a strange way. It forces us to ask much deeper questions. Why do we exist, not just how do we work?
Okay, so if the system is heading towards this massive shift, this obsolescence, are there warning signs? Can we see it coming?
Absolutely. This brings us to what the sources call harbingers of the storm. They use this powerful analogy. The water is about to boil. An economy, or any complex system, approaching a critical transition like water about to boil, or a freeze, or a forest right before a wildfire, it starts to display specific, measurable behaviors. These aren't just metaphors, they're like physical laws in motion. Patterns your brain is recognizing, even if you don't have the words for them.
So that feeling lots of people have, that sense of deep, systemic wrongness.
That's your pattern recognition kicking in. It's your limbic system maybe screaming that the water is getting very, very hot. The analysis points to 4 key measurable harbingers.
4 signs. What's the first?
First, critical slowing down. Think about resilience. Healthy systems bounce back fast. Your body fights off a cold in a few days. A robust economy shrugs off a minor shock in a quarter or two.
Right. It absorbs the hit and recovers.
But as a system gets closer to a critical point, its recovery time lengthens dramatically. A push that used to cause just a wobble now causes a long stagger. It takes much longer to return to equilibrium.
Yeah, we've seen this.
We've arguably been in critical slowing down since the 2008 financial crisis. Remember that. The crisis hits, governments and central banks throw unprecedented monetary firepower at its 0 interest rates, QE.
Yeah, trillions of dollars.
And yet, it took a decade to get back to anything resembling the pre-crisis trend. Previous recoveries took maybe 2 years. The system's natural bounce was just gone.
So 15 years of life support.
Pretty much. Monetary life support yielding really anemic growth. Each intervention seemed weaker, each recovery feebler. Then the COVID shock hit. Governments deployed unimaginable fiscal firepower, trillions more. But was it for a robust recovery? No, it was just to prevent immediate total collapse.
We're not bouncing back, we're being propped up.
That's exactly the phrase the sources use. We're being propped up. The resilience is fading.
Okay, that's Harbinger 1, slowing down. What's number 2?
Harbinger number 2,
Yeah.
variance explosion. As the system nears criticality, it doesn't just get slow, it gets erratic, wildly unpredictable.
Or volatile.
Not just volatile in a healthy way, it's that small inputs start creating disproportionately huge outputs. Think markets swinging violently on rumors, soaring one day, plunging the next with no clear fundamental reason. The system loses its equilibrium mechanism, it overreacts.
Like the meme stock thing, GameStop.
That's a perfect example. GameStop stock rockets from $17 to over $400. Why? Because a bunch of people on a Reddit forum thought it would be funny, basically.
It felt absurd.
It was absurd, but it was also physics. It was thermodynamics in action. You had trillions in stimulus money sloshing around the system with few productive places to go, so the energy dissipated in these increasingly bizarre ways. The everything bubble, art, crypto, stocks, bonds, houses, prices became completely decoupled from underlying reality. That's variance explosion.
Got it. Slowing down, blowing up. What's Harbinger 3?
Harbinger number 3, flickering between states. Imagine watching water right at 0 degrees Celsius. You'll see little ice crystals forming and melting, liquid water turning solid and back again, flickering. The substance can't quite decide which state it's in.
Okay, like it's stuck on the boundary.
Exactly. Our economy's flickering like that all over the place. Think about the gig economy. Are Uber drivers employees or independent contractors? 15 years, thousands of lawsuits, constitutional debates, and we still don't have a clear answer. They exist in this twilight zone, flickering between legal statuses.
That's a great example. It feels unsettled.
Or money itself. Is Bitcoin a currency, a commodity, a speculative asset, digital gold? We're still arguing. Its identity flickers depending on who you ask and when. These things are stuck in a phase transition, unable to settle into a stable state.
Makes sense. And the last one, number 4.
Finally, Harbinger number 4, correlation length explosion. This sounds technical, but the idea is simple. In a stable, healthy system, local events tend to have local consequences. A power outage in one town doesn't usually black out the whole country.
Right. Problems are contained.
But as a system approaches criticality, everything becomes connected. Disturbances propagate much further, much faster. The correlation length, the distance over which things influence each other, stretches out, approaching infinity. The whole system starts to behave as one giant, quivering, interconnected mass.
So no more local problems.
Essentially, yes. The perfect textbook example was the Ever Given container ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal. Remember that? In March 2021.
Yeah, blocked everything for days.
For 6 days, yeah. One ship, stuck sideways, it stopped about 12% of global trade. Now, that should have been a local problem for shippers and the canal authority, right?
I think so.
But the effects cascaded globally almost instantly. German car factories had to shut down waiting for parts. American furniture stores ran out of inventory. Brazilian coffee rotted on docks. It wasn't just bad luck.
This was the system structure.
It was the inevitable consequence of decades spent building a global system optimized purely for maximum efficiency at the expense of all resilience. We stripped out every buffer, every redundancy to save pennies, and in doing so, we increased the correlation length to the size of the entire planet. There are basically no local problems anymore. One hiccup can cause global spasms.
So these four things, slowing down, variance explosion, flickering states, correlation explosion, they're all symptoms of the same underlying condition.
Exactly. They're not separate issues. They are four different scientific measurements, different angles, showing the same fundamental reality. A complex system that has reached a state of criticality and is poised for a major phase transition, a big change.
And the alarming part is, physics doesn't care about our stock portfolios or political debates.
Physics does not care. It just happens. And the sources argue that people in power, executives, central bankers, they see these signals. They know the water is boiling, but they can't say it aloud, right? So they use code words: heightened uncertainty, increased volatility, significant headwinds.
Translation: the system is unstable.
Precisely. The transition will happen. The only real question left is, what do we transition to? What comes next?
Okay, wow. So that's the diagnosis. The system's critical. What about the root causes? Why is it breaking?
Right. This leads us to deconstructing the old, the fatal lies. The material argues that modern economics isn't just slightly flawed, it's built on a foundation of sand. And not just any sand that's turning into quicksand beneath our feet.
A house built on sand.
The foundational assumptions of mainstream economic theory, they argue, are often the precise opposite of reality. They're like load-bearing lies, assumptions we rely on that are actually steering us directly into a chasm.
Load-bearing lies. That's a strong phrase.
It is. They even suggest we were all effectively indoctrinated in what they call the factory school, an education system designed less for critical thinking and more for compliance, preparing us to accept these fundamental falsehoods about how the world works without questioning them too deeply.
Okay, so what are these lies? Let's unpack them. What's lie number one?
Lie number one is the big one, the one that kicks off literally every Econ 101 textbook. Scarcity is fundamental.
Right. Economics is the study of how we allocate scarce resources. That's the definition I learned.
It's the myth we've all been taught. Without scarcity, the entire field of economics, as traditionally defined, seems to have no reason to exist. What would economists study?
But you're saying that's a lie. How? We experience scarcity all the time.
In the physical world, yes, often. But look at the world of intelligence, of information, of ideas the world AI operates in. A single AI model, right now, can write 1 million unique legal briefs. It can generate 1 billion different architectural plans. It can compose infinite original symphonies. And what's the marginal cost of producing the second million or the billionth plan?
Practically zero. Just the electricity basin.
Exactly. The material puts it very directly. We are not approaching post-scarcity in the domain of intelligence. We have arrived. Think about that cost reduction again. A professional human mind doing complex cognitive work might cost $30, $60, $100 an hour. An arguably superior AI mind for many tasks. Fractions of a cent per query.
That's not just cheaper. It's a different category. And 99.99% cost reduction or more.
It's a phase change. So, what's the fatal implication? The profound consequence of basing our system on this lie?
Well, if the system is designed only to manage scarcity,
then it processes abundance as a catastrophe. When AI makes expert knowledge effectively free, our main economic gauge, GDP, only sees the collapse of the consulting industry or the education industry. It doesn't see the explosion of human capability and access to knowledge.
so we measure progress backwards. We see abundance as a problem to be fixed.
We literally try to fix this explosion of value as if it were a disease because our scarcity-based system registers it as a loss. That's the first fatal lie.
Okay, what's lie number two?
Lie number two is deeply personal for many people. Human labor has value.
Whoa. Okay, that's controversial. Surely labor has value. That's how most people live.
The myth is that work provides not just income, but also identity, purpose, social standing. The idea that work equals worth, it's deeply embedded in our culture, our psychology, our morality.
The Protestant work ethic, the American dream, it's all tied up in that.
Absolutely. But the reality check, as we discussed with the inversions, is harsh. Previous automation waves replaced muscle. We pivoted to minds. That was hard, but possible.
The knowledge economy, the service economy.
Right. But AI replaces the mind itself, the cognitive engine. And as the sources say, there's nowhere left to pivot for the majority of purely cognitive tasks.
Because the AI is cheaper and often better.
And remember the negative value concept. For a growing number of cognitive tasks, a human isn't just more expensive. In purely economic terms, considering the total cost and inconsistency, the human becomes a liability compared to the AI alternative.
A liability, that's tough to hear.
It is. But the fatal implication of clinging to the human labor has value myth is that we keep preparing for the wrong future. We obsess about reskilling for jobs that are rapidly disappearing or becoming economically irrational.
Instead of asking a different question.
Instead of having the really necessary, maybe difficult conversation about decoupling human worth entirely from economic production, we need to shift the focus from endless futile job creation to genuine purpose creation in a world where traditional work is less central. This lie prevents that shift.
Okay, lie number 3 feels related. Money measures value.
Ah, yes, the GDP lie again, but framed differently. The myth is that GDP, the sum total of all monetary transactions in an economy, is a reliable measure of well-being, of progress, of societal health. It's our main dashboard indicator.
If GDP is up, things are good. If it's down, things are bad. That's the basic message.
That's the message. But the reality check is almost comical if it weren't so damaging. Think about Wikipedia. 20 billion pages of free knowledge served up every month, and an unbelievable contribution to human flourishing, education, innovation.
Right, absolutely invaluable, you'd think.
What's its contribution to GDP?
Negative.
Negative how?
Because it destroyed the paid encyclopedia industry. It replaced monetary transactions with free abundance. Our main dashboard literally counts this immense public value as a loss.
While counting disasters as gains.
Exactly. It counts human tragedies like hurricanes, oil spills, or even widespread illness as positive growth because they generate transactions, rebuilding, cleanup, healthcare spending. It's fundamentally backwards.
So the fatal implication here is that our measurement system is structurally blind to abundance and well-being. When knowledge, clean air, strong communities, things that are valuable but often free or non-transactional increase, GDP might actually go down. This leads us to actively fight against progress, trying to prop up obsolete industries instead of celebrating newfound abundance. We're conditioned to fix things that are actually getting better just because our broken gauge says they're getting worse. It's an insane way to navigate the future.
Insane is the right word. Okay, what's another one?
How about this one? Distribution follows contribution.
Ah, the meritocracy argument.
Yeah.
You get what you deserve based on how much value you create, right? Work hard, be productive, and you'll be rewarded accordingly.
That's the myth. It's the bedrock of the American dream, the justification for inequality people earn what they're worth in the market.
But the reality check? Does the data back that up?
Not even close, especially in recent decades. The sources cite this stark statistic. From roughly 1973 to 2023 in the U.S., worker productivity, the amount of value produced per hour, increased by about 247%, a massive jump.
Okay, we got much more productive.
But median worker wages over that same period, they increased by only about 99%.
Wow. So that link between productivity and pay, it just snapped.
It was fundamentally severed decades ago. Most of the gains didn't go to the workers creating the value, so where did the value go?
To capital.
To owners.
Increasingly, yes. Value shifted towards owning the platforms, the networks, the algorithms, the intellectual property, not necessarily towards the effort involved in production. AI is just pouring gasoline on this fire. Earning a living in the near future might increasingly mean inheriting shares in the company that owns the AI that does all the actual work.
So the fatal implication of this lie.
It prevents us from facing the real distribution challenge of the 21st century. It keeps us trapped in endless circular debates about skills gaps and retraining, pretending that if people just tried harder or learned new skills, they could recapture that lost value.
When the game itself has changed, when the fundamental physics of value creation and capture have shifted under our feet, this lie allows us to tolerate, even justify, a world where unprecedented technological abundance exists side by side with deepening poverty and precarity. It creates enormous social instability because the narrative of fairness no longer matches reality.
These aren't just small errors in thinking, are they? They're fundamental.
The material argues they're not separate lies at all. They're like 7 faces of a single massive delusion. They paint a picture of an economic system designed for a world that no longer exists, a world of scarce atoms, primarily human labor, and relatively stable markets.
And it's trying to operate in our world.
Our world of abundant bits, increasingly non-human AI labor, and winner-take-all network dynamics. And the sources are adamant. It cannot, it will not, it is not capable of functioning properly in this new reality.
So what dies with these lies?
A lot of cherished cultural baggage, perhaps. Things like the Protestant work ethic, the classic American dream of upward mobility through hard work, the very ideal of meritocracy. They argue we desperately need new stories, new narratives that are actually aligned with the physics of abundance, with human well-being, and with the urgent need to cultivate consciousness, not just consumption.
New stories for a new reality. That takes us back to the dashboard problem, doesn't it? The GDP issue.
Exactly. Which brings us to the insane dashboard, GDP, and the meaning crisis. The material uses this incredibly stark analogy.
The pilot one.
Yeah. Imagine you're piloting a Boeing 747 through a violent storm. Both wings are on fire, the plane is in a steep nosedive, but you, the pilot, calmly turn to the panicked passengers and point to the dashboard, saying, "Don't worry, cabin pressure is stable and the in-flight movie is playing perfectly."
That's modern economics pointing at GDP while society, well, nosediving.
That's precisely the image they paint. And it's not just a minor flaw or oversight. They argue it's an intentional ignoring of history. Simon Kuznets, the guy who literally invented GDP back in the 1930s.
He warned us, didn't he?
He explicitly warned Congress against using it as a measure of national well-being. He was crystal clear about its limitations, that it only measured market transactions, not welfare. And what did we do?
We ignored him completely.
We took this limited accounting tool and made it the ultimate scorecard for civilization. The result: a world where almost every metric that truly matters for human flourishing, mental health, social trust, ecological stability, sense of purpose is flashing red, while the one metric we obsessively track often shows success. It's madness.
So let's go through that perversity gallery they mentioned. How does GDP actively mislead us?
Okay. Example 1. The hurricane economy. A hurricane devastates a coastal community. Homes destroyed, lives shattered, immense human tragedy.
Awful. A net loss for humanity, surely.
For humanity, yes. But for GDP, it's often a multi-billion-dollar windfall. Think about it. Rebuilding efforts, insurance payouts, emergency services, cleanup crews, replacing destroyed goods. It all generates massive economic transactions.
So destruction looks like growth on the spreadsheet.
By the perverse logic of GDP, the best possible year for the economy might involve every single city being destroyed and then rebuilt. It rewards destruction.
That's deeply unsettling. What's another example?
How about the cancer boom? A healthy person living a healthy lifestyle. They contribute relatively little to the healthcare sector's contribution to GDP.
Right, they're not consuming much healthcare product.
But someone who develops, say, lung cancer, from a purely GDP perspective, that's fantastic news. Diagnostics, surgery, rounds of chemotherapy, hospital stays, ongoing medication. A single complex cancer case can easily generate $470,000 or more in GDP activity.
So GDP logic says, sickness is good for the economy.
By this insane logic, yes. Carcinogens are economic stimulants. Prevention efforts that keep people healthy are an economic loss. And finding a genuine cure for a major disease, that would be an economic catastrophe for the sectors profiting from treating it. It incentivizes sickness, not health.
It's hard to believe we actually use this metric to guide policy.
And it gets worse. The real insanity isn't just that GDP counts the wrong things, it's that the very act of targeting GDP changes our reality, often for the worse. This is Goodhart's law in action.
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Exactly. Think about the engagement trap on social media. Platforms needed a metric for success, right? They chose engagement, clicks, likes, shares, time spent scrolling.
Seems reasonable on the surface.
But the algorithms designed to maximize that number quickly learned a dark truth. Outrage drives engagement far more effectively than connection, nuance, or understanding.
So the algorithm started promoting conflict.
Precisely. It began systematically amplifying polarizing content, misinformation, and anger, because that's what kept eyeballs glued to the screen, maximizing the target metric. We targeted engagement and, in the process, actively destroyed social trust and genuine human connection. The metric warped the reality it was supposed to measure.
And this ties back to the abundance problem too, right? GDP's blindness.
Absolutely. It's the abundance paradox again. Our dashboard is structurally blind to things that become abundant and free. It doesn't just fail to see their value, it often registers their arrival as a negative event.
Like the Human Genome Project example.
Perfect example. It was publicly funded, cost billions. But the decision to make all the data publicly accessible, free for anyone to use, unleashed an estimated $1 trillion in downstream economic value, new diagnostics, therapies, research.
A massive net gain for humanity.
Huge. But what was its direct contribution to GDP? Negative. Because it made genetic information cheap. It undermined expensive, proprietary data models and research that did contribute to GDP. Abundance look like loss.
An AI engineer would say we're using the wrong loss function.
Right, exactly. We're training our entire civilization on a fundamentally flawed objective function. And just like training an AI on bad data produces bad results, training our society to maximize GDP produces this blurry gray world, as the sources put it, where the metrics of success lead directly to human suffering and ecological destruction.
And the most devastating consequence, they argue, is the meaning crisis.
Yes. Because by optimizing purely for monetary transactions, we've inadvertently created a world that is rich in transactions and impoverished in meaning.
Impoverished in meaning. How does that show up?
Think about the friendship recession. Deep, genuine, non-transactional friendship. It's a GDP black hole. It doesn't generate direct monetary exchange. So what has our economy done? It's systematically replaced it with monetized substitutes. Online dating platforms, paid social clubs, networking events, even paying therapists to simulate connection. All these things do contribute to GDP, so we end up with more friends on social media than ever, but fewer people we can actually call at 3 a.m. in a real crisis. We traded connection for transactions.
And the purpose vacuum.
We're constantly told our value, our identity, comes from our job. But look around, many high-paying, high-status modern jobs involve, frankly, pointless paper shuffling or optimizing things that don't really matter, corporate bureaucracy, financial engineering that adds little real value.
Yeah, David Graeber called them bullshit jobs.
Exactly. The economy often rewards this kind of sophisticated pointlessness quite handsomely, while penalizing profound, deeply meaningful work like teaching, caregiving, or art, often relegating it to near subsistence wages. Your economic reward is inversely correlated with your contribution to actual human flourishing.
That's a recipe for widespread alienation.
And then there's the attention annihilation. This is crucial. In the information age, human consciousness itself, our attention, has become the new oil. It's the scarcest, most valuable resource.
And there's a huge industry built to capture it.
A multi-trillion-dollar industry, arguably, designed specifically to capture, hold, and monetize every sliver of our attention. The result: a population with the attention span of a goldfish, constantly agitated, neurologically rewired for distraction, perhaps incapable of the deep thought and sustained focus needed to solve complex problems, or even just live fulfilling lives.
What's for GDP?
For GDP, the attention economy is a booming growth sector. It's contributing massively to national wealth. We are, in effect, strip mining human minds, degrading our collective cognitive capacity, and calling it economic progress.
The statistics really paint a grim picture here, don't they?
They do. The sources cite things like 47% of Americans feeling worse off than their parents, breaking that generational promise. A 20% surge in mental health prescriptions just since 2020. Birth rates collapsing to 1.6 per woman in many developed nations, well below replacement level, a sign of deep societal pessimism.
And the job market. All those degrees.
40% of recent college graduates are forced into jobs that don't even require a degree, buried in debt for an education the economy doesn't value. And trust in institutions, government, media, corporations is at record lows across the board. The social fabric is fraying.
So this insane dashboard isn't just an academic problem. It's actively guiding us towards disaster, especially with AI coming.
Critically so. Because think about how we'll react using this dashboard. When AI starts automating legal research, making legal services cheaper and more accessible, the dashboard will show the legal sector collapsing and will panic, try to protect lawyers' jobs.
When AI tutors provide world-class personalized education for free to anyone on Earth,
the dashboard will show the education industry imploding and will frantically try to save universities and traditional schooling models.
When AI-driven preventative medicine leads to a genuinely healthier population, reducing the need for expensive treatments,
the dashboard will show the healthcare sector shrinking and will declare a recession because people aren't sick enough.
We're using instruments designed for a hot air balloon to navigate a supersonic jet in a hurricane.
That's a perfect way to put it. The better our technology potentially makes the world more knowledgeable, healthier, more capable, the worse our official economic gauges will look. Clinging to GDP in the age of AI is no longer just an academic error. The sources call it a civilization-level suicide pact.
So step one is admitting the dashboard is broken. Insane, even.
Step one is admitting we're flying blind. Step two is urgently building new instruments, a new compass. Which leads us to the idea of the mind dashboard.
Okay, let's talk about that new compass. But first, we need to understand the underlying physics, right?
Yeah.
The new physics. Intelligence as the engine of order.
Exactly. If the old economics failed, we need a new foundation. And the sources argue that foundation must start with the most fundamental law of the universe: entropy.
The second law of thermodynamics.
Huh.
Everything falls apart, right? Disorder increases.
That's the one. Stars burn out, mountains crumble, complex systems decay into randomness and chaos. It's the universe's default setting. For centuries, old economics basically ignored this inconvenient truth, building models of perpetual, frictionless growth as if entropy didn't apply to economy.
Which seems optimistic.
Wildly optimistic and fundamentally wrong. But the really interesting question, the sources say, isn't why things fall apart. That's just a default. The truly profound question is, why does anything ordered exist at all?
Like stars, galaxies, living cells, economies.
Exactly. These are all temporary pockets of order, improbable structures, local victories against the relentless tide of universal decay. To build a new economics, a physics-based economics, we have to start with this fundamental struggle. How is order created and maintained in a universe that's constantly trying to tear it down?
Okay, so how is order created? What's the mechanism?
The answer they propose comes from a famous 1867 thought experiment by the physicist James Clerk Maxwell. It's known as Maxwell's ghost, or Maxwell's demon.
I've heard of that. The little demon sorting molecules.
That's the one. Maxwell imagined a tiny, intelligent being, a demon, sitting at a gate between two chambers of gas. This demon could see individual molecules and intelligently sort them, letting fast, hot molecules go one way and slow, cold molecules go the other.
Creating a temperature difference, order out of chaos.
Precisely. Creating a useful energy gradient, reducing entropy locally just by sorting. And the sources argue this is the hidden secret of all value creation in the universe, including economic value.
So every business, every entrepreneur, they're acting like Maxwell's demon.
In a fundamental sense, yes. Every act of economic value creation is, at its core, an act of intelligent sorting. The entrepreneur is the intelligent agent, sorting valuable opportunities, fast molecules, maybe undervalued assets, unmet customer needs, inefficient processes, from waste and friction, slow molecules, the result. A company, an organization, a temporary, improbable pocket of incredible low entropy, a structure that creates value.
So profit is what exactly in this model?
Profit, they define it, is the temporary surplus of low entropy an intelligent agent can create before the cost of its own thinking catches up. It's the net order created.
But there's a cost. The sorter's price. The demon has to think, right?
Exactly. Even Maxwell's hypothetical demon isn't magic. It needs information. It needs to measure the molecules, remember which is which, decide when to open the gate. This thinking, this information processing, has a physical cost.
It takes energy to think.
It absolutely does. Rolf Landauer, an IBM physicist, proved this mathematically in 1961 with Landauer's principle. He showed that every irreversible computation, like the fundamental act of erasing a single bit of information in a computer's memory, has an irreducible thermodynamic cost. It must dissipate a tiny amount of heat into the environment.
So thinking literally makes the universe slightly warmer.
In a way, yes. It reveals this profound truth that old economics totally missed. Intelligence is a physical process with a real, unavoidable cost. Creating order requires spending energy, not just physically, but informationally.
Okay, intelligence costs energy. How does this lead to a theory of economics?
It builds what they call the persistence bridge, from observation to intelligence theory. The simple observation is complex, ordered systems, things like firms, markets, institutions, even life itself, somehow manage to persist over long periods despite entropy trying to tear them down.
So how do they persist? Is it just luck?
A skeptic might say that, yeah. Survivorship bias. Maybe successful companies are just the lucky gamblers who haven't gone bust yet.
Right.
But the material argues strongly against that. The universe isn't just a single coin flip. It's an ongoing, infinite series of challenges and contests. And over many, many rounds, systems that can predict and adapt to their environment will always outperform random chance. Persistent systems, whether it's DNA, brains, or successful businesses, are, by definition, powerful learning and prediction machines.
So evolution selects for prediction.
Any evolutionary process, whether biological or economic, that selects for persistence over time is implicitly selecting for one crucial capability: the ability to create maximum predictive order for a minimum thermodynamic cost, get good at predicting the future efficiently, or vanish. This, they argue, is the bedrock of what they call intelligence theory, or IT.
Intelligence theory. Okay, define that for us.
IT is defined as Economic systems, as complex adaptive systems, evolve to favor configurations that are most efficient at creating predictive models of their environment. It basically reframes all of economics not around money or utility, but around energy, entropy, information, and computation. It's the operating manual for any successful sorting agent, any system that wants to persist.
And what's the goal of such a system, according to IT?
The implicit goal of any persistent system, from a cell to a company to an economy, is to minimize its total computational cost of accurately modeling its world. And this cost has three irreducible components, three things it's always trying to balance.
Okay, what are they?
First, minimize predictive error. That's the cost of being wrong about the future. This drives the constant quest for accuracy, for better models, like a negative loss function in machine learning.
Makes sense. Don't be wrong.
Second, minimize model complexity. This is the cost of thinking, the sheer energy required to run the internal predictive model. This drives systems towards simplicity, elegance, avoiding unnecessary complexity or overfitting. Find the simplest model that works.
Okay, don't overthink it.
And third, minimize update cost. This is the cost of learning, the energy required to change the model when the environment changes. This drives systems towards efficiency and adaptation, being able to learn quickly without huge disruption.
Be accurate, be simple, learn efficiently. That's the physics of persistence.
That's the physics of any intelligent system that manages to beat entropy for a while. And now, think about AI in this context.
Okay, how does AI fit into this new physics?
AI, quite simply, is the perfect sorting machine, or at least potentially perfect. Compare it to humans. We have biological brains. They're amazing, but they're slow, relatively inefficient, definitely mortal, and our intelligence is fundamentally capped by evolution, about 20 watts of power, fixed architecture.
We are limited biological sorters.
AI, on the other hand, it runs on silicon. It's superhumanly fast. It's thermodynamically vastly more efficient per logical operation. It's perfectly scalable. You can copy an AI model 1 billion times at near zero cost. It's effectively immortal. And crucially, its intelligence is potentially uncapped due to recursive self-improvement.
It can get smarter, potentially without limit.
Which leads to this critical insight from the sources. AI is not just another technological shift. It is a phase transition in the efficiency of entropy reduction. It's a fundamentally better way to create order from chaos, operating according to physical laws of computation. And because it's more efficient, it will inevitably reorder the entire economic system according to its own logic.
So the conclusion of this whole new physics section is pretty profound then.
It's huge. It's the end of scarcity, the beginning of physics. Old economics was obsessed with scarcity and allocation because that's all it could see. Intelligence theory gives us a much deeper foundation. Value is not a pre-existing substance like gold. It is a state of low entropy, achieved by intelligent agents sorting their environment.
Value is ordered information.
Value is efficiently created predictive order, and AI is becoming the ultimate engine for creating that order, improving itself every microsecond. The human question, therefore, shifts completely. It's no longer, how can we be better sorters? That game is rapidly ending.
The fundamental question becomes,
what is our purpose? What is our role in a world where the primary engine of creating economic order is becoming non-human? That's the existential question IT forces us to confront.